Hey everyone, it's MusicTechHelpGuy, and welcome to another Logic Pro tutorial. In this video, I want to talk about how setting the key of your song can be very helpful for the development of your song or composition, and also how setting the key in advance affects some of Logic's parameters. Now, if you didn't already know this about me, I've actually taught Logic and college-level music and music production courses for over a decade now. And one of my biggest critiques of student work and work that subscribers from YouTube send me is that the individual elements of a song or a beat are really cool, but they don't make sense together because they're not in the same key. So the mistake that most people make is they just ignore this. They start making their beat. They start dragging in loops from the loop library, and their beat is not in C major. And so you end up with all of these loops that are automatically transposing to C major. You end up with step sequences loading in C major, and you have to sort of put in some extra effort to transpose the step sequence. Let's start by changing the key. Let's go with something like G minor. Now, I know what a G minor scale is because I went to music school, but some people don't. G minor is G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G. Is two flats in it. However, if you choose the key in advance and you right click up here and create a pattern region, Logic will automatically load the step sequencer in the correct key. If you just start in C major, it'll just give you one octave of C2 to C3. Here you can see I've got G, A sharp or B flat, C, D, D sharp or E flat, F, G. So if I enter in a sequence like this, I'll get a G minor scale. So this makes staying in key from the get-go much easier. So off screen, I came up with this little synth idea. Because I set my key in advance to G minor, I know that all of these notes in the step sequencer are conforming to G minor. So now, if I decide to add additional step sequencers, they will also be loaded up in G minor. Here I've got a bass line. Now you might think, well, it's not really in, it's in G minor, but it's not really in the bass range. There's a really cool trick down here in the step sequencer. Just click in here to bring it into focus, and then press Shift Option down, and you can drop the whole thing down by an octave or up to pull notes up by an octave. And by the way, this isn't going to have any effect on drum instruments because they're not tonal. So if you set the key of your song up here, it's not going to affect drum instruments. Now, another really important thing that setting a key up here affects is if you're in the loop browser and you drag in any audio loop that's sort of tonal in nature, meaning it has a defined key, so things other than drum loops. So for example, here is a loop called Abstract Atmosphere. Its original key is in the key of B. However, because I set my key to G minor, it's transposed this to the key of G. And if I pull this into my beat, yeah, so it fits because that loop has automatically been transposed to my key. Now, there is one caveat here. The loop browser in the key column here doesn't distinguish between major and minor keys. So for some reason, I pulled in a major key loop. That loop would be transposed to the key of G, but G major instead of G minor, and that's not going to fit the song. And again, this is another critique of work that I get from beginners is they'll have loops and samples, some that are in major and some that are in minor. Like maybe the whole song is in G, but some of your ideas are in major and some of your ideas are in minor. They don't really make sense together. So one thing you can do is if you're going to use loops, select a scale here. And for me, I'm using minor. And what this will do is it will get rid of any of the loops that are in a major key and only show me loops that are in minor. You can also set the signature here too. I'm in 4/4 time, and you can get rid of some that don't quite make sense timing-wise as well. So let me try out these agile funk synth leads. You can see the original key is E, and I'll drag these in one by one, and it'll automatically transpose them from E minor to G minor. Now, another thing you can do is down here, you can click here, and there's an option here to play in song key or play in original key. So if I select play in original key and then play one of these funk synth leads, it plays in its original key. However, when I drag this in, it still transposes it to the key of my song. So that's just one thing to keep in mind there. I usually just set this to play in song key. And this also works for pattern loops and MIDI loops as well. So here's this Brilliant Rain keys. This is originally an A. And let's see if it's transposed it to G. It sure has. Interestingly enough, though, every once in a while I'll drag in a MIDI loop and it won't conform to the key of the song. So I think some of the loops are tagged with key information and others aren't. You know, your results may vary, but in general, just sticking to this method of setting your key first, then working in step sequencer, then dragging in loops really saves a lot of pain and hassle. Now, let's say that you're done with your beat and you decide that maybe you want to record vocals on this, but the vocalist's voice is a little too high or a little too low, and you need to adjust the key of the beat or the composition overall. The way Logic handles this is actually a little tricky, and it's not very obvious. So, for example, if I want to go from G minor, say, down to D minor, so that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps lower. You could also see this as being, I think it'd be 9 half steps higher. So 6 half steps or 6 semitones lower. If I set this to D minor, none of the MIDI or step sequencer patterns are going to transpose. So again, back in G minor, everything's exactly the same. Now, oddly enough, audio loops do transpose if you change the key up here. So here's G minor. If I click here and go down to D minor, this loop will transpose to D minor, but nothing else will. So that's a little weird. I'm not sure why it's handled that way, but that's the way it's handled in Logic. So let's say I want to go from G down to F. 0, 1, 2. 0, you just count from that key down. 0, 1, 2. So 2 semitones lower. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to F. But what I'm also going to do is on all my synth tracks, my synth, my bass, my abstract harp, and Brilliant Rain keys, all of these instruments, I'm going to go over to the region inspector. I'm just going to select the track. That'll select all of the regions. Go to the region inspector and type in -2 because I need to lower all these by 2 semitones or 2 half steps. I do not need to do this with the drums because the drums are not tonal. I do not need to do this with the audio loop because the audio loop is following the key of the project. And then I do need to do it with these last 2 step sequencer and MIDI ideas here. And now everything should be down in the key of F minor. So it's a little bit of a weird way of handling that, but it works. That's a way you can transpose your whole song up or down to the correct key fairly simply. I wish it was a little more straightforward than that, but it is what it is, at least in this version of Logic. So hopefully this video helps you guys out to keep your loops and step sequences in key, and hopefully helps you to create better music in the future and just better music overall. If you liked the video, please leave it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. As always, thanks for the support and thanks for watching.